The number one resolution for people last year was to save more money, but nearly half gave up by February. Don't let that be you. Download Rocket Money to reach your financial goals this year. Track your spending, cut waste, and automate savings in one simple app. Rocket Money shows you all your expenses and categorizes them so you know exactly where your money's going and where you're overspending. From there, the app cuts waste by canceling your unused subscriptions and lowering your bills. No customer service needed. With that money freed up, the app will automatically set some cash aside for your goals, whether it's an emergency fund, paying off debt, or saving for vacation. Rocket Money's got you covered. Users love the app with over 186,000 five-star ratings. And on average, users can save up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Make saving money a priority this year. Go to rocketmoney.com/cancel to get started. That's rocketmoney.com/cancel. rocketmoney.com/cancel.
Want to feel more confident with your finances this year? If you have 60 seconds, I can show you how quick and easy it is to start building healthy money habits that could last you the entire year just by using Rocket Money. Step 1, download Rocket Money. Step 2, link all your accounts and see your entire spending picture, your subscriptions, your upcoming bills, your due dates, everything. Step 3, tap a subscription you don't use and cancel it. Boom! That's money back every single month. Step 4, create a financial goal for something you want to save for, whether it be a vacation, a retirement account, or a pet's birthday. We don't judge. Now let the app automatically move small amounts of cash towards your goal. In a month, you'll see real dollars piling up. In a year, you'll be shocked at how much money you saved. Similar to the over 10 million members on the app that have saved up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Use the Savings Challenge as one step closer to feeling better about your finances today at rocketmoney.com/cancel. That's rocketmoney.com/cancel. One more time, it's rocketmoney.com/cancel.
5 years ago, I was paying $65 a month for my subscriptions. Today, those same subscriptions cost $111, and I don't even use half of them anymore. That's why now I use Rocket Money to manage my subscriptions for me. The app gives you a list of all of your subscriptions and reminds you of upcoming payments, so you're not hit with any surprise charges. On top of that, it also sends you alerts when subscription prices go up, so you always know the price you're paying. If you decide you no longer want a subscription, you can cancel it right from the app. No customer service needed. And the best part is, Rocket Money even reaches out and tries to get you refunded for some of the money you lost. On average, people that cancel their subscriptions with Rocket Money save $378 a year. And overall, Rocket Money has saved its members $880 million in canceled subscriptions. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Go to rocketmoney.com/cancel to get started. That's rocketmoney.com/cancel. rocketmoney.com/cancel.
Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that looks at the money behind a beautiful game, with me, Producer Guy, standing in for Kevin Day today, who's unable to record, unfortunately, just for one day, hopefully. And also Liverpool University's Kieran Maguire. How are you, Kieran?
Well, I'm back from Fulham at the weekend, which involved a contentious VAR decision. Apparently, if Danny Welbeck wore size 7 boots instead of size 10 boots, we would have scored a second goal yesterday. So that was a bit frustrating, following on from a contentious VAR decision. But hey, yeah, it's football. Other than that, I'm irritatingly cheerful.
Good.
As one would expect me to be.
Of course. Okay, it's questions day today, so let's get straight into them. Our first one is from Roberto Petruccio, who says, when Stoke City sack a manager, could Bet365 run next manager odds, or because of their connections with Stoke, would this be unethical? Furthermore, with betting companies sponsoring clubs and therefore having relationships with them, how does this work when it comes to the betting markets with things like manager odds, or things where insider knowledge could be an issue? It's a good point, isn't it? With the connections between clubs and gambling firms, where do conflicts of interest arise?
It is. I think this is an interesting one, Guy, and for people that have been following the Tony Bloom case, which is rumbling through the courts at present, where a former employee or a former person connected to Bloom is claiming for additional monies. The Football Association has an arrangement with club owners along the lines of, if you were involved in gambling before you became involved in the football club, then you can have a special dispensation to bet on football. So the normal football rules is that nobody connected with the football club can bet. And that includes backroom staff, by the way. I know some sort of middle management, senior management. They are not allowed to bet on football deals. And I think I remember, wasn't it Kieran Trippier when he went to Atletico Madrid? I think he'd told a couple of friends on WhatsApp that I might be off, and they piled in. So if you are a player or a manager, you are definitely not allowed to bet. And as far as I'm aware, this also has implications for other members of staff at the club when it comes to gambling as well. But there is this special dispensation. So therefore, for the likes of Tony Bloom at Brighton, Matthew Benham at Brentford, and presumably Bet365 at Stoke, you are allowed to gamble, but you are not allowed to place bets on competitions in which your club is participating. So therefore, Bloom and Benham would not be able to place bets on Premier League games, for example. Bet365, this becomes more complex, because if you go to the Bet365 website, they do quote the odds for Stoke City. But what they have done, and what will they have been able to prove to the football authorities, is that there is what we might call an ethical window, such that nobody from the ownership side of the club is involved with anything to do with that part of the business which sets odds, because otherwise there is this danger. And that is common in many industries. If you take to look see what happens in Canary Wharf and in Wall Street, for example, you've got those people who are sort of operating on the research side of industry, where they're going to meetings with big companies and so on, and they're getting information which isn't necessarily in the public domain. They're not allowed to speak to colleagues who are in the buying and selling shares of things, because otherwise it's insider information. So I think, provided there are suitable checks and balances, and there appears to be, and the football authorities appear to be happy enough, then that's where we are as far as Stoke City are concerned. It is very much now one member. I think it's John Coates, rather than Bet365, which is the owners. So there has been the separation from Bet365 as an entity in its own right from Stoke City. But it's an opportunity for those people who don't like football or don't like gambling to have a go at football clubs. But as I say, it's something which happens on a broader level, in far more complex and far more lucrative markets than the gambling market.
And in terms then of the second part of Roberto's question, in terms of when there are sponsorship deals with gambling companies, is the separation far enough already for it not to be an issue?
Yes, because an awful lot of the time, if you take a look at what we might refer to as the white label gambling entities, the ones which tend to be Asian market facing, and they quite often don't have a presence in the UK, or they quite often don't even seem to have a website in the UK, and they're actually sort of their license normally comes from the Isle of Man or Malta or somewhere like that. They tend to have no relationship with the club whatsoever, with the exception of sticking their logo on the front of shirts and ideally paying the club on the due dates for the appropriate sponsorship fees. So I think the football authorities are relatively relaxed with regards to that, because they don't see it as being an issue. I mean, there's been times, if I'm perfectly honest, where I get a bit of insider information on something, and there is a temptation to place a bet, but again, that would be, I'm a professional accountant, and I've got my own ethical guidelines which I have to follow within my profession.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Roberto. Thanks for sending that one in. Our next question I really like too is from Stefan Jost. Thank you, Stefan. He says, do players accumulate annual leave, or is this not considered as part of football contracts, as the off-season is basically their holiday time? Yeah, where do football player contracts stand on annual leave?
Well, it's a bit like being a teacher, in the sense that the football season is the equivalent of term time, and therefore you're not entitled to take any leave during that period from when pre-season training starts until the end of season. But I think there is now sort of a few grey areas. When we've previously spoken to Maheta from the PFA, I think he said that there's a concern that with the extension of tournaments that we've seen within football in recent years, and then you've got clubs who have gone down this route of having post-season tours as well as pre-season tours, and potentially you've got a World Cup which is now extended, a Club World Cup which is extended, or the Euros which is extended. The window of opportunity for a professional footballer to have a holiday is being diminished year by year. Now, a lot of people at this precise moment in time listening to this, they have just whipped out, I would say, a whole orchestra worth of the world's smallest violin, saying, well, hold on, footballers don't do too badly on the remuneration stakes. At the elite level, absolutely, I would agree. At the non-elite level, I'm aware of footballers who are on certainly at League Two, National League, and National League North and South, of some, I describe some fairly modest salaries, especially those people who are just breaking through, getting their first contracts. When we started this show, Guy, it was you and I first met when the Berry issue was sort of rumbling through, because we were both based in Manchester at the time, and some of the apprentices who just broken into the Berry first year, they were on £200 a week. Yeah. The money isn't always that good. So there is sort of a nominal period, and I think what the union are saying is that we want our members to have a minimum of, I think it's 4 weeks, just as their statutory entitlement would be. Remember, they don't get bank holidays. They train on Christmas Day. They will be training on New Year's Day and so on. So it is a different environment, and in that regard, I think it does have some parallels with the entertainment industry as well, where to a certain extent, you make hay whilst the sun shines, and you deal with complications. Perhaps you'll get greater holidays in your post-career period, but the unions are trying to protect the interests of players, because the players have they have partners, they have children, they have parents, and as you grow up, you want to have holidays and memories to share with your family.
And you may not know this, but in terms of actual player contracts, is it written in? Different clubs have different dates where, for example, Club A might say, you are contracted to play for us and you're not entitled to any leave between the period of, say, July the 15th and May the 15th.
Yes, they wouldn't necessarily state that date, because there could be complications caused by the pre-season tour might change from season to season. But there would normally be something along the lines of that you will be entitled to a minimum of, let's say, 20 days, and this would be expected to be taken unless there are exceptional circumstances. Death in the family, could be a newborn arriving in the family. This will be expected to be taken in the non-season window, where in line with industry practice.
Matt Mason has our next question. He says, do you think clubs could make use of sales with buyback clauses to take advantage of high-value youngsters coming through their academies with values that they can't amortize? Similar to it says in quotes, interesting and definitely separate deals done between Chelsea and Aston Villa last summer. That might even be the summer before now. But depending on the queue of questions.
It's a couple of summers ago.
I think it is a couple of summers ago, isn't it? But with players they actually want to keep and whose value would actually give them a higher profit to bank, simply buy them back the following season for an agreed sum, spreading that value over another 5 years. Now, just explain, what's your understanding of this question? Kieran, that just felt a bit confusing to me. But what exactly do you understand by this question, and what's the answer?
Right. Let's say that we've got a promising youngster, and let's just take two clubs at random who are Chelsea and Aston Villa. I'm not saying this would have happened, of course. And Chelsea have got a promising young player where perhaps the perception of the market value would be that the player is worth 20 million. And they sell that player to Aston Villa for 30 million. This would allow Chelsea to book a 30 million profit. Now, the chances are it could be by pure coincidence, and I have to stress this, the fact that it happened between 6 clubs in the summer of 2024, the week before the end of the season, and all of those 6 clubs otherwise may have been in breach of PSR. They mysteriously had a series of transfers between them. Why not, instead of, let's say we got 2 players worth 20 million and 25 million, we book in the sales at 30 and 35 million. That books in an extra 10 million pounds of profit. You put those players on 5-year contracts, and then you have a buyback clause which allows you to buy them back at the lower price in a year's time. So that way you book the profit now. The acquiring club, yes, they put through a little bit of extra amortization, but that's spread over 5 years, and 5 years is a long time in football. As we know. And then you could potentially buy back that player if the selling club wanted to sell. Again, there would have to be something in it for the selling club's perspective. So yes, all contracts, especially when it comes to... And none of these players are swapped, by the way. I cannot stress this enough for the sake of me being shouted at and for you not having to worry about not sleeping because of lawyers. These transactions are purely at arm's length, purely at market values, according to the perception of both parties. But there is flexibility within contracts to, as we say, inflate and accelerate when it comes to profits on player sales, because there is no price list. If I go into the Apple store and I want to buy an iPhone, that iPhone costs £899, and that's throughout the whole of the country. If I'm buying a 19-year-old footballer, well, they've not got a price list.
No.
So there's no agreed market value. So therefore, it's up to the 2 parties to negotiate. And the history of football is littered with player acquisitions who you look back over your shoulder in history and you go, I think we probably got that one wrong. And I think Barcelona are the global basket case of football finance in many regards. And if you take a look, they signed Philippe Coutinho from Liverpool for what we think is probably around about 140 million. They signed Griezmann for over 100 million. And they signed Dembele for more than 100 million. All 3 of those proved to be flops. And the crazy thing was that Dembele then becomes the world player of the year, whilst he's no longer at Barcelona and he's been sold.
So, without naming clubs, then, do you think it is possible that clubs are thinking, okay, let's sell this player with a buyback clause, and then use that as a way of improving their finances through amortization or whatever?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, and I won't name the clubs, but now through the vehicle of mime, I'm spelling out the names of those clubs to Producer Guy. And this is why having an audio podcast is really good for our legal bills.
Yeah, we're definitely considering the video version at the moment. But this strengthens the case to stay audio only.
You didn't start a business just to keep the lights on. You're here to sell more today than yesterday. You're here to win. Lucky for you, Shopify built the best converting checkout on the planet. Like the just one tapping, ridiculously fast acting, sky-high sales stacking, champion of checkouts. That's the good stuff right there. So if your business is in it to win it, win with Shopify. Start your free trial today at shopify.com/win.
Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, is now streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney+.
Trying to find some real in all the noise. You always do.
The artist you know, the story you don't. See Golden Globes nominee Jeremy Allen White as Bruce Springsteen. Critics are saying it's a career-defining performance.
Let's burn this place down, Johnny.
Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, now streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney+. Rated PG-13.
All right, Stephen Smith has our next question. He says, say a team gets promoted and relegated to and from the Premier League for 10 consecutive seasons. When do parachute payments stop and restart again? That's a great question, isn't it? Because, run us through how it works, because there are differences in terms of the way the payments work, aren't there, depending on how quickly you get relegated. Is that right?
There is. The rule is that if you are relegated from the Premier League, you are entitled to 3 years' worth of parachute payments, unless you have just been promoted from the Championship and you're immediately relegated again. And I think the Premier League really got its fingers burnt in, I think it was 2011, when Blackpool were promoted under Ian Holloway. And if you take a look at Blackpool's wage bill in their one and only season in the Premier League, Ollie nearly kept them up, to be fair to him. It went to the last few games of the season. Their wage bill in the Premier League was lower than that in the Championship. And I'll tell you, honestly, Guy, it wasn't particularly high in the Championship. But the directors decided to pay themselves a bonus of £11 million in that particular season for all the wonderful work they'd done for the club. And
Of course.
don't get me started. But Blackpool were the recipients of parachute payments in those days for 4 years. So what they did, and we have seen this in other clubs, I think it's probably fair to say that accusation could be levelled at Luton when they were promoted to the Premier League, that their wage bill was around about half of that of any other club, and I think they only spent around about £20 million. I think when they got relegated from the Premier League, the total value of all of their signings was 28 million, and that included the players they'd recruited to get to the Premier League in the first place. So if clubs, for want of a better phrase, have an air shot in the sense that we're budgeting to get relegated, and we're going to try and win matches, but if we don't, we weren't really trying that hard anyway. It seems unfair to give them the full 3 years of parachute payments, and in the case of Blackpool, it used to be 4. So therefore, the Premier League have said, if you are relegated, immediately you only get 2 years worth of parachutes. Now, Luton are currently, of course, in League One, and I think they're doing okay. They're not ripping up the league, but I think you've got Cardiff and Lincoln with the top 2 positions, and Luton are a few places behind. But Luton are in receipt of parachute payments of around about £35 million in League One, and to give you some form of context. If you take a look at the other 23 clubs in League One, their TV monies together comes to £37 million. So Luton's getting 35, 36, and the other 23 between them are getting 37. So that's indicative of the huge gap. Now, going back to Stephen's question.
Yeah.
If you are promoted and then relegated, and this is something which really hacks off Championship clubs and so on, what the Premier League say is that second year of parachute payments, which you should have received, ultimately, that's our money. So what we're going to do is that we're going to claw it back. So when you get relegated from the Premier League, in the first year, the parachute payments are approximately 46 million. You would get those for that 1 year in the Championship, but year 2, which is around about 35, that will be clawed back. And that will be distributed between the 20 Premier League clubs. And what we've seen, of course, recently, that there have been cases where 3 clubs have been relegated and then promoted up again, and that can work out as about £4 to £5 million per Premier League club, which is being clawed back, and that causes a gnashing of teeth amongst EFL clubs, because they say we're already the poor relations, and this is actually increasing the gap between the Premier League and the Championship.
And so, just in terms then of distilling that down, when do the parachute payments stop and restart again? Is there a simple answer to that, or is it very much dependent on the circumstances? I don't know.
Well,
How do you
in the
describe it? If
case,
it's for 10 consecutive seasons, when would they stop and restart?
they would get parachute payments for 5 seasons because they get relegated, they will pick up their first year of parachute, they get promoted, so therefore they don't get that second year of parachute because instead they're picking up the Premier League core monies, which are a minimum of 115 million.
Okay, so they get it for 5 of those 10 seasons. Great. All right, Chris Forth has our next question. He says, at top level, we often hear of contracts of 3 to 5 years with a 1-year option exercisable by the club. Do regulations allow a club to offer a 1-year contract with a 2 or 3 year option? This might suit a smaller club almost on a try before you commit too much basis.
Yes, the simple answer to this, Chris, is that within contracts, everything is available. So it is what you could have is, let's say that you sign a player, and this can quite often, perhaps the player is a little bit more senior. And you sign the player on a 1-year contract, and what the contract will say is that if you play 20 times, that automatically triggers next year's contract, and next year's contract will also say if you play 20 times. So that they tend to be 1 + 1 + 1 rather than 1 + 2. Because what the club wants to do is that for those players who are slightly older, and it's a terrible thing to say because let's face it, I'm a man well into his 60s, and I'm going, oh blimey, he's 31. Oh blimey, he's getting on a bit. And with complete lack of self-awareness. When I say that as well. So what the clubs try to do is to protect themselves, and also that acts as an incentive to the player. The only downside on that is that if the player is on a relatively high salary, what you can have is pressure from the board of directors put on the manager to not pay a player because he's played 19. We don't think we can afford him for next season, so therefore he has to go and train with the kids for the rest of this year. So it can work in favour and it can work against as far as the security of the player is concerned.
Our final question today is from David Gorton. Thanks for your question, David. And this one, I know this question is a classic throwing down the gauntlet to you, Kieran, and your spreadsheet abilities. And knowing you as I do, I'm sure that your first thought was, oh my God, I'm going to have to do all this work with a spreadsheet. And then you thought, yes, I'm going to have to do all this work with a spreadsheet. So David says, does Kieran have a spreadsheet which shows the best value striker in the Premier League in terms of goals to wages? I would assume that any spreadsheet would require adjustments to be made in terms of CPI or another football-related index. So that's obviously taking inflation into account. So David's question, what do you think, Kieran? Do you have a spreadsheet, first of all, or did you create this one from scratch this afternoon?
Well, we don't want to let the magic too much out of the bag, Guy, but I think it's I'm sure listeners must be aware, despite my amateurish tone most of the time, you normally give me 2 or 3 days notice before we record a show. So when you sent me this one at the end of last week, I had started a little bit of work on it, and the problem that exists is that it's impossible to determine player wages. So therefore, what I have done instead is that I've looked at the transfer fees paid, and I've adjusted those for inflation, and I've adjusted for those. There's various measures of inflation. I've used what I wouldn't call myself an economist, but I'm now going to say we economists call current purchasing power inflation. And what this means is that regardless of how much extra it costs you for a can of beans, if your income goes up by 20%, we're going to say that inflation in football is 20% to reflect the change in purchasing power, because the TV deals, the sponsorship deals, matchday income have risen and I've said this on many occasions. And when I'm sort of doing guest talks, I always say my opening line is, since the Premier League started in 1992, the Consumer Prices Index is up 126%, but Premier League revenues are up 3,111%. If I was single, I'd put that as one of my Tinder opening lines as well. See whether they swipe left or right. Not that I understand how Tinder works. I hasten to add. but when I'm talking to the kids, this is the type of thing that they tell me. So I put this into a table, and what I did is I took the top 11 goal scorers, because the football team consists of 11 players. I took the top 11 goal scorers in the history of the Premier League. I determined the number of goals that they scored whilst they were in the Premier League, and then we managed to pick up the transfer fees from as reputable sources as we could potentially find. We know that Alan Shearer joined Newcastle for £15 million in 2006, which today would be valued at £209 million. And so I put this all into my spreadsheet, and I'm now going to give you. I've always wanted to be a Radio 1 DJ. So this is me being John Peel, my equivalent of the Festive 50 when it comes to the top 11. So in 11th place, at 800,000 inflation-adjusted pounds per goal, paradoxically, is the man who scored the most goals in Premier League history. It is Alan Shearer. Okay. In 10th place, at £730,000 per goal, it is Andy Cole. In 9th, £630,000 per goal, it is Wayne Rooney. In 8th position, Sergio Aguero, for possibly the greatest noise ever made on television in Premier League history, whether you support Manchester City or not. And again, you can't see this, listeners. Producer Guy, who's a Manchester United fan, he's grimacing as I said that. But Sergio Aguero worked out as £560,000 per goal. Thierry Henry, £540,000 in position 7. Michael Owen, who sort of gone under the radar, but people forget just how many goals Michael Owen scored. And remember, he also played for Manchester City and Leeds, so there were transfer fees involved. There wasn't a transfer fee for Liverpool. That was 3. That worked out as 490,000, inflation adjusted. Robbie Fowler, another Liverpool player in the main, of course. But again, he played for. Who did I say? Michael.
You were thinking of Robbie Fowler when you said
Fowler. Yes. Oh, yes. So I'll get shot now. Michael Owen played for Newcastle United and Manchester United.
He did.
Robbie Fowler, who played for Leeds United and Manchester City, as well as, of course, for his amazing feats for Liverpool itself. And I've taught Robbie Fowler. How many people can say that?
Yeah,
he's a fantastic guy. He's 5th at 380,000. The next one, which I think is absolutely amazing, a midfield player who scored so many goals that he's got into the top 11 goal scorers. It's Frank Lampard. He worked out as £350,000 per goal in terms of inflation adjusted transfer fee. 3rd, Mohamed Salah. At £310,000 per goal. This one might surprise people at number 2, Jermaine Defoe.
Wow.
Jermaine Defoe, £210,000 per goal. And number 1, it has to be Harry Kane. 0, because he didn't cost Spurs a penny.
Of course.
And we talk about the importance of academies. And if you take a look at some of those players, Michael Owen is probably most famous for the goals that he scored coming via the academy. Same with Robbie Fowler. Frank Lampard started off at West Ham, of course, but Harry Kane, 0 cost per transfer fee per goal. So that is my top 11. And I'll be honest, the only thing that I was looking forward to coming home from Fulham after that 2-1 defeat was the prospect. I walked through the door. The Baroness was a bit worried, but I'm fairly easygoing. I might be. She'd seen the result. She'd popped onto YouTube. She saw the contentious goal. She said, "Oh, he'll be in a bad mood." And I came and she said, "Oh, you could be grumpy." I said, "No, I've got a new spreadsheet." And she said, "I'll go and listen to some podcasts about traitors then." So I'm there ferreting away all evening, updating this, yes, I'm very grateful, David, because it gave me the opportunity to do some of the nonsense that I love.
Oh, well done, David, and thank you for your question. Great to cheer Kieran up after a poor result. But thank you to everyone who sent in a question this week, and thanks to everyone who's joined the Price of Football Club. If you'd like to join the club too and get every episode a day earlier than everyone else, ad-free listening, invite to our monthly Q&A sessions, bonus episodes and more, go to our website, priceoffootball.com. If you have a question you'd like answered on the show, just like on a questions episode like this, email us at questions@priceoffootball.com. Don't forget you can follow us on X and you can find us on YouTube. And if you'd like to buy one of our books or even a Price of Football t-shirt, you can find all the details on our website, priceoffootball.com. And Kieran, would you like to give your customary farewell at this stage?
Yeah, we've still got that unopened box of T-shirts, haven't we? Which I suspect if we do open, it could contain quite a few moths.
Yeah.
But yes, thank you to everybody. Some of these questions do put a spring in my step. They do give. I do have, as one would expect from a over 60-year-old teetotal chartered accountant. I don't have many friends. I don't get out very much, so this gives me something to occupy my thoughts and my mind. So thank you so much, and also to all of those members of Club Price of Football. We really enjoy the interactions that we have with you, both with the additional questions, shows, and so on. But times are tough, and there's an awful lot of people wanting subscriptions these days. There is another way that you can support this show. And that's to give us a review. I mean, take you 30 seconds. Just pop onto your podcast app. Doesn't matter what you say. You could even say you'd rather have the show presented by Lurch from the Addams Family and Flipper the dolphin, who, for those people too young to remember, had the ability to solve crimes by going and blimey, somebody's robbing the bank, and that was how we grew up in the 60s and the 70s, kids. It was a different time. It was a naive time.
Yeah, believe it or not, I got the joy of watching reruns of Flipper in the early 90s, I think. Which that's got to be one of the greatest ever premises for a detective show, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
We'll leave you with that thought. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Bye.
The Price of Football. The Price of Football.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time, 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.